joining us now, and as a result of an article that he has penned in the New Zealand Herald this morning and has already been referred to, it has a currency, I have to say, is Richard Prebble. Now, Richard Prebble, of course, former Labour Minister and also leader of the ACT Party. Welcome to the show, Richard. Good to have you here.
Yeah, hi, Michael. Long time.
Well, I was just saying before that we used to have a go at each other in the house, but isn't it funny how things diminish as you get older?
Yes. Well, the queue of people that I've had a go at is very long.
Good on you. Hey, you've written this article in New Zealand Herald this morning, and essentially you're arguing that that Three Waters is a coup, that it is, and you mean that in the proper sense of the word. You go on to also say that almost without debate, we're undergoing the biggest constitutional change since 1840, and those who question the wisdom of that change are being silenced by accusations of being racist. What prompted you to write the article?
Well, I actually went to see the film Fina. My other half bought tickets, and as I said there, I knew Fina Cooper, and why would I want to go and see a movie? But you never win those arguments with your partner.
No.
So we went to the movie, and it's surprisingly good. I don't know why I should say surprisingly, but it was a good movie. And the projection of Fina, which I thought would be characterised in today's politics, was actually valid. And I knew her quite well. My first wife, who's no longer, who's died, she probably knew Fina even better than I did. But the point I was going to make is that what made me think about what would Fina think of the government's present treaty policies, and I have no doubt in my mind at all that she would not agree with them. The idea that the treaty suddenly enables a number of iwi tribes to co-govern the country was a concept that Fina never put to me. I'd never heard her say it. And in the film, they also had Sir Aparana Ngata, and the portrayal of him was correct. Ngata was the first Maori lawyer. He's probably the most distinguished Maori politician we've ever had, and he wrote about the treaty, and he also would not agree that the treaty meant that we were going to be co-governed by some iwi tribes who how they selected their people is a bit of a mystery, but it's certainly not one person, one vote. Mm. And the point I'm making in this article is that Three Waters, when you go and read the cabinet papers, the argument that Maori should co-govern our water and drainage and sewerage system is purely based on this government's radical reinterpretation of the treaty. And it's a coup. That's never been passed by the courts. It's never been agreed to by the voters. It was never put forward by the Labour Party in its manifesto. And I personally like the idea of New Zealand being a liberal democracy. I like the idea that everybody's vote's equal. And I suspect that not only most New Zealanders, but most Maori actually are in favour of one vote, one person. This is just it's a coup.
Earlier today, Richard, I had on the Race Relations Commissioner, Meng Foon,
yes.
And talked to him about how he was influencing local government New Zealand. They've just put out a 7-page guideline on campaigning for candidates. And one of the things he said is, well, he was absolutely unabashed about it. He said, well, if there aren't separate Maori seats on councils for Maori, then Maori have no value. And he's been pushing that agenda, and local government New Zealand seems to have accepted it. It's coming from a variety of quarters, this particular campaign, isn't it?
It is, but it's also nonsense. Yes. I live in Rotorua, and the Rotorua Council enthusiastically adopted Maori wards, and then the councillors, after they'd done it, did some maths and actually realised that Maori wards will result in fewer Maori being on the council than we have at the moment. About half the councillors at the moment are Maori. And if you have a Maori ward, they did the maths and worked it out, so then they put up a bill to Parliament, which the Labour Party was pushing through, which would actually mean that every my Maori neighbours in in this valley would have a more valuable vote than mine, but not all Maori. Only those Maori who are on the Maori roll. And about half of all Maori in Rotorua choose to be on the general roll, and their vote would be discounted too. I mean, the whole thing's a nonsense. And the Attorney General was forced to give advice to Parliament that it's actually contrary to the principle of one person, one vote, but it does show the dark road that we're on. It's the logic of what we're on, and I think where it's really going to come back and bite the public is in health. There's never going to be enough money for health. Never has been, never will be. There are more treatments that people would like and are desirable than the taxpayer can pay for, and so we actually have a system of rationing. Politicians don't like to say that, but we do, and the rationing at the moment is based on need. So those people who have more pain than you, they go higher on the list. But having a Maori Health Authority, the logic of that is that rationing is going to be based on race. Well, I think that's apartheid. We thought it was wrong in South Africa. It's wrong in New Zealand. And the idea, I mean, sure, Maori health outcomes are, speaking generally, a disgrace.
Can I ask you, Richard?
Can I just finish this point? Just analyse it, though. It's actually based on poverty. If you go and have a look at the health outcomes of poor whites, and there are many poor whites in New Zealand, their health outcomes are just as bad as they are for poor Maori. You don't have to use race. If you just look at socio-economic factors, that's enough. And I think bureaucrats like using race because it's easy.
Well, that's the question I was going to then ask you. Where's the agenda coming from? I've identified people working deeply within the public sector who clearly have political agendas. They are anti-capitalist by nature. In fact, they proudly profess to be. Yet they are people working on Three Waters. They're working on local government reforms and things like that. Is the agenda within our civil service, or are there others more politically overt?
Well, the civil service has always had its own agenda. You know, Yes Minister, which the public thinks is a comedy, and the civil service thinks it's a documentary, and we politicians know it's a tragedy. The civil service has always had its own agenda. And at the moment, there are a significant number of civil servants who are completely committed to their radical revisionist view of the treaty, and they are working hard to silence anyone who has a different point of view. And that's why I think we actually have to have a public debate. We do need to debate the matter, and the public of New Zealand, if you are a Democrat, in the end is entitled to make its decision. And I say one reason why this agenda is going to fail is because it's unworkable. You can't actually co-govern. I mean, poor old Willie Jackson, he doesn't know who he represents. Is he representing as a minister every New Zealander, which the Constitution says he should be, or is he in fact co-governing the country? The fact that he's holding secret discussions only with Maori on these issues indicates to me that Willie thinks he's just representing iwi. Well, Willie, no, you're not. And the fact that you find it impossible to do both jobs should send you a message that what you're doing can't be done. You can't serve two masters, as the Bible tells us.
Sorry, Richard, just dropping out there. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still there.
Sorry.
I made a biblical quote. I said you can't serve two masters.
Yeah. Can I just say, though, that the other thing that strikes me is you must be very happy at the moment with where ACT is in terms of their party polling and the number of MPs and their presence in the House. Do you think that they are going to be critical in those numbers and with that strength to make sure that National actually doesn't just carry on with this agenda after the election?
I most certainly do. I'm never quite sure where the National Party stands on this and quite a few other issues, because they're putting out contradictory statements. There seems to me to be no doubt as to where ACT stands. We're interesting election. In some ways, it's going to be the third party that's going to decide it. If the Maori Party holds the balance of power as they do on some polls, then we're going to charge down this co-government route with a speed that may be irreversible. And of course, if the ACT Party holds the balance, it's clear that this co-government nonsense is going to come to a screaming halt.
Is the fact that the reality that the last election Labor did something which was extraordinary, getting 50% of the party vote, is that emboldened them, do you think? Do you think that they think that is the political mandate to do this?
Well, it certainly emboldened them. I mean, they've got, under some parliaments supreme, and if you've got a majority of one, you can declare night to be day, you can do anything you like. The problem that they've actually got is that the mandate they got was actually to keep COVID out, and people voted for them because they thought that the government was going to keep COVID out. Well, that hasn't worked. They certainly didn't have a mandate for co-government. Indeed, if New Zealand First is to be believed, and I see why they shouldn't be on this, the Labor ministers actually kept secret from them the work that the government was doing. On the United Nations Indigenous Treaty. That treaty, by the way, doesn't require New Zealand to do anything. It's just a declaration. But claim you've got a mandate for policies which you actually kept secret, not only from the electorate but also from your coalition partners, shows the problem that the government's got now. Yeah. Even though I actually think they'll be swept away because of probably because of inflation rather than anything you and I are talking about. Yeah. No, fair enough. Richard, thank you for joining us this morning. I appreciate the time and the effort you've shown to come on. The very best of wishes to you. Okay, that's Richard Prebble, former leader of the ACT Party, and you would have heard what he had to say.